my exposure may be a little bit unusual. So when I was working on my prerequisites for the nursing program, I took a microbiology class and I really loved it. And my microbiology professor shared with us information about an infection preventionist well, infection control nurse, right? At that time, that was the term, in Australia, in kind of the early days of MRSA, like the challenges with MRSA in the hospitals. And so she was having an MRSA outbreak in her burn unit. And the story kind of described, how she went about identifying what was happening and how it was being transmitted and the different strategies she used to try to prevent the transmission and keep the patient safe. And I knew I was going to nursing school, but that seemed very unattainable to me, right? Like that's something that you do when you're like a very experienced nurse. And so keep it in the back of my mind. That sounds really cool, but that won't be my reality for a while. So then, yeah, when I was in nursing school, I started working as a CNA so I could get some experience taking care of patients and kind of grow on what I was doing in my clinical rotations. So then graduated from nursing school in 2000 and started working as a med-surg nurse and made the unfortunate mistake of sharing with my charge nurse that I usually worked with at the time, night shift med-surg, that I thought infection control sounded like a really cool job. And, what did she know about it? And she was like, oh, really? You think that sounds cool? You can take care of all the patients in isolation then. So that's what I spent my, first part of my career running around with 10 patients in isolation on my med-surg unit at night. But it didn't deter me. So, so I eventually moved from that hospital and started working in another hospital, small hospital in the ICU, and was really enjoying that. And out of the blue, the infection control nurse at the time approached me and said, I understand you're interested in infection control and I have an offer for you. She wore multiple hats. We were in a small rural hospital. And so she needed to give something up because the administration wanted her to take on an additional role. And so she heard about this ICU nurse on the night shift who was interested in infection control. So came and talked to me about it. And so it kind of dropped into my lap and I didn't want to turn it down. I didn't want to say no. So it was a really small hospital. So I worked part-time at night in the ICU and then part-time during the day, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do as the infection control nurse. So thankfully I had her to help me through that process, and she trained me and kind of taught me what I needed to know to try to learn how to function in this role. It was a lot to learn to know. A lot of things you don't learn in nursing school, right? So it was a big learning curve. But it was a great start, and I'm thankful to her for reaching out to me and asking me about that. So then I eventually left the bedside and was doing, still in that small hospital, part-time infection prevention work, and then part-time with the quality department doing performance improvement, quality reviews and that type of thing. So then eventually left that hospital and moved back to Southern California and was able to continue working in infection prevention in another little hospital in Southern California, but not quite as small. We increased from an average daily census of 30 to about 100. And then got a lot of additional experience with employee health and workers' compensation and peer review and risk management. And just, in a small hospital, you wear a lot of hats. So I wore a lot of hats in that place and learned a lot. And did that for about 5 years, and then had an opportunity to move to a hospital as part of a large system in California. So, and I slowly was able to focus on infection prevention. So that was really nice. And stayed there for 11 years and learned a lot, so much expertise in that organization and so much that I was able to learn and pull together during that time. And then after 11 years, moved to my current position, and I've been here for about 3 years.